So what if all the houses in the neighborhood were worth $500,000? And I bought this one for $160,000. Wow, I'm excited. All right, so that's what auctions are.
Hey, thanks a lot for joining us. And if you have joined us, you're interested in tax foreclosure auctions. Well, good news for you. We have somebody here by the name of Ted Thomas who knows a thing or two about how to make money off tax auctions. Ted, you've been doing this for over 30 years, and you've been in real estate that long, and you have tons of expertise. So could I start by asking you, Ted, to specify, I know some people call it a tax foreclosure auction. Some call it a bank foreclosure auction. What's the difference between those two?
Oh, okay. Well, it's good that you asked what the difference is because most people confuse it. So let's just talk about mortgage foreclosures to start with. Now, that's a bank foreclosure. So people that want to borrow money on a property, they simply do this. What they do is they go to the bank, say they'd like to borrow. And the bank says, well, fine, what is your collateral? And the people say, well, I don't have any collateral, but I can put my house up for collateral that I want to buy. So the bank said, okay, well, we'll lend you money based on that collateral. And so the bank then lends money, and when they lend the money, that's called a mortgage, or it's called a deed of trust, depending upon where you are in the United States. When they lent that money, you had to sign a mortgage, a document of maybe 10 or 20 pages. When you sign it, you actually pledge the property back to the bank if you don't pay it. The bank lends you the money on a mortgage, but the mortgage says in it, I'll talk to all the things that are in it, but it said, if you don't make payments, you're pledging the property back to the bank. And then that's what a foreclosure would be because the bank didn't get paid. So they say, well, wait a minute, you pledged the property back to us, so now we're going to foreclose on you. So that's a mortgage foreclosure. Now, a tax defaulted foreclosure is altogether different, and it could easily be confused because people just throw out that word foreclosure. So tax foreclosures, we'll go to that in just a second, but let's make sure we're comfortable with mortgage foreclosure. What do you think about that?
I think, okay, I got it. I'm borrowing money from the bank. The bank's saying, that's fine, but if you can't pay this, we're going to take your house back, correct?
Right.
Okay.
But you gave them permission to do it. You pledged, when you signed the document, you pledged it back to them anyway. But now they have to go through a formal process where they have to send you default notices, and they have to slap your hand and say, look, you're going to have to, if you don't do something, we're going to have to get an attorney and all that kind of thing.
Okay, so that's the bank. So what is a tax foreclosure auction then?
Okay, so now tax foreclosure is the same kind of process that where the local government is saying, first of all, every property in the United States is mandated by the legislature of the state. The legislature says everybody has to pay taxes, everybody, okay? So that if you have a farm, you have to pay it. If you have a commercial building, if you have a apartment house, but most of us have houses. So in a house, you have to pay taxes. Now, if you don't pay the tax, then the local government is going to say, well, wait a minute, you haven't paid your tax. You must pay taxes. So they'll go through the same kind of process. They'll send you notices of default saying you must pay the tax. And if you don't pay the tax, then they take action. And the action they take is they actually confiscate, they seize the property and they take it away from you. And then they sell it at an auction. And that's what you and I hear about, the tax defaulted auction.
Okay. We talk about tax deed auctions before. Is a tax foreclosure auction and tax deed auction, is that the same thing?
Yeah, it's the same thing. That's good analysis. Yeah, absolutely. So what happens when you go to that auction, if you and I go to it, we can hold up a bidder's card or we can wave at the auction, oh, I want to bid. And then let's say you won the bid, then you're going to get possession of that property. So you're going to actually get a deed. A deed is a transfer device, just a piece of paper. Okay, you're going to get a deed to that property, probably say on the top of the deed, treasurer's deed or a default deed, but you'll get a deed to the property.
All right, Ted, so, you mentioned the auction. Let's talk about, actually going to a tax foreclosure auction. So you walk in, what is that when you find out about the property? Do you find out about the property before? I mean, how does it work? What's the process?
Oh, well, now that's a good question. First of all, tax defaulted auctions happen in all 3,000 plus counties in the United States. So every county will have some tax defaulted properties, okay? People didn't pay the tax. Now, we can go into the reasons for that in a minute, but they didn't pay the tax. If they didn't pay the tax, they get notices of default. Then the county will seize the property. And what they do when they seize the property, I'll show you one right now. this is a list from Los Angeles, California. It's an auction just coming up next week, and you can see that there's a lot of properties in this auction. There's over 1,000 properties in that auction. Let me show you another one. Show you a smaller one. So this is a brochure from an auction in Dutchess County, New York. That's right near New York City. And this is a smaller brochure, okay? And then they list the properties. You can't read it from there, but maybe they can show you later. And so there's a list of the properties here, and little descriptions of them and so on. But every county will auction properties, and they will give you a list. They just want to get rid of the property. The county doesn't want the property. They just want to get rid of it. And the reason they want to get rid of it is it's on a default list. See, defaulted means nobody's paying any money. So the county wants to get it sold to somebody that'll pay some money, meaning pay the taxes.
Okay. So Ted, to be clear then, do all counties in the United States have these tax foreclosure auctions?
All counties in the United States, there's over 3,000 counties. Every single county will have tax defaulted property. Now, if they have a small population, there'll be dozens, maybe 100 properties every year for sale. But a big population like Los Angeles, like I showed you Los Angeles, now that's a big county, 3 million people. They're going to have hundreds, thousands of these tax defaulted properties, which they're going to sell, and they don't sell them like bank foreclosures. They sell them for just the back taxes. I mean, they're going to sell these properties sometimes 5, 10, 20 cents on the dollar. Wow.
Well, if I want to try this, does it make sense for me to go to where would I go to my own county commissioner office and ask for this list?
Yeah, you could go there, but nowadays you could probably just go online and find the auction list online, because they would publish it and put it online. Now, they're not going to publish it every week. They're probably going to have 1 or 2 auctions a year, and they'll tell you when the auctions are going to take place. But this is free information. Anybody can get an auction list. We even produce an auction calendar, which we can tell you about later in this episode. But we have lists of every auction in the United States taking place, and it's in the course of a year, it's going to be 3 million tax defaulted properties every year.
Now, does it make sense to just kind of stick in your own county when you're looking for these, or is it okay that, I'm here in Cleveland, Ohio. Should I stick around Cuyahoga, or is it okay that I look at other counties?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question. I live near Orlando, Florida, and I actually watched the auction in Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland, and I like to watch that auction. So it used to be there was just a 2-hour flight there. Now they don't have that flight anymore. But I used to just get on the plane in the morning, and I could be there at 10 o'clock, or go the night before. I could be at 10 o'clock. They start the auction, and you can go anywhere in the United States. You can buy tax defaulted property. Every county has them available.
Is there a strategy to, and in other words, how should I pick a county to start with? But that way, I mean, there's 3,000 counties.
I would start out getting educated. I think probably the challenge that people shouldn't do, that they want to do because it's exciting, is I want to take action and go to an auction. Well, you know how to go to an auction. What are you buying? You want to figure that out. So what I would suggest people do is do some learning. Obviously, I'm the learning, I teach people, but what they need to do is they need to look at the property and see if it has a value. So I'm not going to buy a property in Cleveland that I haven't seen. So I'd go there ahead of time, and I'd go look at the property. I'd take pictures of it. I'd figure out what the value. So I'd go through a process of understanding the property before I ever thought about bidding. Now, every properties at tax defaulted auction, some are used and abused. Other ones are just absolute junk. I mean, you don't want to buy junk. But other ones, you could just paint them and clean them up and resell them. And so there's some of everything at every auction. So let's say a big county like Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, on the west side of Cleveland, that's where all the big executives used to live in the 1900s. I mean, there were a lot of wealthy people in Cleveland because it was a center of commerce. All right. And then on the east side, the working guys like you and I, we all live on the east side, right? All right. So those houses, if they go to auction, they're all different prices. So you would have to analyze, location with real estate, right? What you buy is what you get. So you would want to look at something you knew you could sell it. Now, that's going to take a lot of strategy. I just touched on a couple of things there.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's obvious you do have a lot of expertise in this because you're throwing out things, information about where people lived in Cleveland. I live here. I don't even know that, but I imagine that's part of being, understanding this business and taking advantage is really maybe getting to know some of the areas you're going to be even looking into.
We actually start people at a 6-hour class. We tell people, if you want to learn this business, spend $47 and attend one of our all-day classes. We do that twice a month. And we will have a couple hundred people. Every time we have the class, a couple hundred people will sign up. But during that class, we have a lot to learn. I mean, here on a video, we can do a little bit, but what if you could see people doing it? What if you could see pictures of the house? So, for example, if the house is a junker and you could buy it for $1, do you really want it?
Right.
I mean, you don't want it. What are you going to do with it? I mean, you're going to have to maintain it. You're going to have to provide security for it. You're going to make sure it doesn't burn down. You're going to make sure, drug dealers don't go in it. I mean, so this, you have to be responsible. So you don't want to just buy something because it's an auction. Now, I'm going to tell you, the average person in America, they just go to auctions and start buying, and they haven't even looked at the property. That's the biggest mistake you could make. You wouldn't marry a woman without looking at her, that's for sure. But people go and they buy a property. They say, I want to buy that. I want it. What are you going to do with it? Most important thing in an auction is the exit strategy. What's your exit strategy? If you don't have one of those, what are you going to buy a property? Who needs more property? We all got enough of that. That's for sure.
All right, let's break this down to a couple things. A couple questions follow up on what you just said. I mean, one was about, you got to know what the property looks like and the exit strategy. Let's start with knowing what the property looks like. Okay, obviously, if I'm buying here in Cuyahoga, I'll go take a look. But what do I do if I'm, I'm looking at something in California? I mean, how do I get my eyeballs on that? What's the best way?
First of all, you should start close to home because ultimately you're going to want to look at this property, okay? So if you can't look at the property, I'm going to tell you, don't buy the property. All right, so you're going to have to hire someone. If you're in Cuyahoga, if you're in Cleveland, you got a long way to get to California. So first of all, you would want to get the property list. Once you've got the list, that's great. Now you're going to pick one that you decide you want to buy, but you're going to have to look at the condition of it. So you're either going to have to go there or you're going to have to pay someone to look at that property for you. All right, when they look at the property, now everybody today can reach in their back pocket and get a camera because that's their telephone, right? But what about the neighborhood? So you shouldn't just look at the property. What if it was a decent property, but it's in a bad neighborhood? People buy neighborhoods, so you got to look at the neighborhood. So you're going to have to learn how to evaluate property. You're going to have to learn what are you going to do with it when you get it. So let's say you get it. So the business is this. You want to try to buy it low, close to back taxes. Then you don't want to try and get retail price. Get some price in between. So get some margin in there. Get a little margin so that you're going to make money. But if you try to get retail and it's a doggy-looking property, you're not going to be able to sell it. Now what are you going to do? You're in Cleveland. How are you going to get rid of it? So you need to have looked at the property and developed an exit strategy before you ever think about spending your money. You can go to Macy's and spend money in a second. It's easy to spend. Try earning. So think about that. Reverse it. What can you sell it for? Then you know what to buy it for. So it's a strategy that's going to take a little development. Now, do we have enough time to do it on this video? I'm happy to answer any questions, but you don't have that kind of time. You need to get educated because it's serious business. I mean, you're talking about a house, you're talking about a warehouse, you're talking about an apartment, you're talking about a farm, you're talking about office building. All of these things come up for tax auction. This is an auction list. Let me pick it up again. This is an auction list. I mean, how could you ever look at all those properties? You're going to have to narrow it down. Just to narrow it down, I have to give you a class on which one to pick. They just want to see how big a business this is. Go and look at our auction calendar. So we have an auction calendar. It's an interactive map. And it'll show a person. It'll show them, well, let me just put it up on the screen right now, and anybody can see it. Okay, now if you can see the white circles on the map, now you're getting the idea. This map will show you every single property in the United States that's coming up for tax auction. All right, small county, small population, there are just a few properties. A big population county, there's going to be hundreds and even thousands. It's all shown right on the map so you can see how big it is. So you can do either one, whichever you like to do.
That sounds really great. Hey, Ted, thanks so much for sharing with us today, a lot of your expertise. And for all you folks who are watching, if you like this video, maybe even subscribe to Ted's channel. And by all means, take advantage of what Ted was just talking about. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.